All right, welcome back. I am here with Sian Abel and Tess James. Thank you two for being here. And I'm really excited about this session for a lot of reasons. When we talk about reinventing, remodeling, reimagining how we're going to acquire and develop talent, and it's something that obviously needs to happen given the realities of the world today. But without further ado, I'll let you two introduce yourselves and take it away. Thanks for being here.
Thanks very much. Yep, we're excited to be here and to share our story with you. So the agenda for the next, I think, 15 or so minutes, we'll talk a little bit about how we reimagine talent acquisition at Kyowa Kirin. We'll talk about what we did and how we did it. And of course, we'll talk a little bit about how we define success, because I know that's where we all really want to get to. How were we successful? How do we know we were? My name is Sian Abel. I am the head of HR at Kyowa Kirin International. I've got 20 or more years, I know I look very young, but 20 or more years life sciences experience. About 10 years in the international arena and more than 10 years leading multinational teams across different geographies. For the past 5 years, I've really been focused in rare disease or life sciences, so in really high growth areas. And of course, this is one of the reasons that I partnered very much with Tess and her team to really reimagine and relaunch talent acquisition for Kyowa Kirin. So Tess?
Thank you. I'll try and do my best against that introduction. But I'm Tessa James. I am the founder and managing director of Talent Reimagined. This is a consulting group that I founded at the end of 2019. We're a group of independent consultants, and I will share a little bit more about the type of work that we're doing. But we've come together really to accelerate transformation for our clients. Sian and I had the pleasure to partner at the end of 2019 and through a lot of the craziness of 2020 to work through this remodel and really upgrade talent acquisition to a new level. And we had a lot of fun doing it. So it's great to be here and to share more about our journey.
Thanks, Tess. So before we start, I'll talk a little bit about when I took over the role of the head of HR for Kyowa Kirin. Tess and I already knew each other, of course we did. We'd worked for a number of years at Baxter, which is another healthcare pharmaceutical company. And at the time I took over, it was very obvious that we really needed to take some time to really accelerate the growth of the company at KK or Kyowa Kirin, and also to really think about the processes, the ways that we were doing things. And of course, you know, nothing happens without getting the right people in the right place at the right time. So what I really wanted to do was accelerate that journey, and Tess as a partner really supported to help me to do that. So I think we have a poll here, Tess. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, I'm not sure where that's going to be seen. We talked to Lavinia about that before, but I don't see it on here, so maybe it hasn't been loaded up.
No worries. So anyway, if you have questions for us, we're going to capture those questions, and we're certainly going to do our best to answer them. Both Tess and I are on LinkedIn, of course, as well, so you can always reach out to us, and I'm sure that we'll be happy to spend some time walking through with you. So Tess, you want to walk us through some of the Talent Reimagined as we started our journey?
Yes, and I'm hoping my audio is okay. I'm getting some feedback that it's a bit robotic, so I'm not sure. I'm hoping I'm not doing a Darth Vader for people at the moment. So just in terms of the work we do with Kyowa Kirin, we walked through the remodel. We use this methodology to actually help accelerate the transformation for KKI. The truth is that actually we didn't put the definition around this methodology until we retrospectively looked back on the entire project and saw how it had come together. And so really, that was an important part of this journey for me. It was the first project that we did in founding the organisation and founding Talent Reimagined. But it was also very validating to make sure that we could see this work in real time and to pull those insights together as we move forward to support other organisations. So the remodel is basically its methodology to accelerate that change. And the way that we do that is to go through 3 separate phases with our clients. One is to reimagine, so to really put ourselves into a future time with our clients to see how do we want this to play out, what do we want the journey to be. Then to rebuild, which we break into 6 different work streams, and we'll talk through exactly how that was structured with KKI and the type of work that we focused on. And then to restart, which is specifically in terms of launching into the new model, into the upgraded model.
Okay, so firstly, of course, Tess talked about the first stage where we really started to reimagine how we were actually going to work through the challenges that we had ahead of us. So Tess, do you want to walk us through a little bit here, and then I'll give some feedback on how we reimagined the Centre of Excellence? No. So really what we did in the reimagine phase is we started to look at how we were working, so what the operations were. So we really took a critical look at the technology we were using. We looked at any of the partners that we might be working with. We looked at how we were assessing talent, the governance model we worked in, and of course we wanted to look at any insights and analytics that we could take from those. We needed to work regionally. So KKI is based across 14 different countries with over 700 employees. And of course, we're recruiting and we're growing quite rapidly. So we needed to look at a regional delivery model. So we really wanted to make sure it was differentiated. We were centralized where appropriate for sourcing or the recruiting team, but that we were able to drive the right level of hiring for the entire region as we move forward. And then, of course, we already had an existing Centre of Excellence, or COE for TA, and we wanted to make sure that that TA COE was able to really provide the right meaningful governance and insights so that we could work forward and really add value to the organisation through workforce planning, looking at the delivery model and looking at the other operations within talent acquisition. We then went on to rebuild. And of course, we started to really look at each of these sections in their own kind of right. So we looked at people. Did we have the right people in place? Did we have the right structure? We looked at processes, of course. So were we managing the end-to-end hiring process in the right way? We looked at the performance. So we looked at what was working, what wasn't working, and how could we improve those things or maintain them. And of course, we looked at partners and pipelining. So when you think about workforce planning, you have to obviously make sure your processes and technology support that. But alongside that, with our partners, making sure that we were able to articulate it and communicate it in the right way. And of course, target and engage the right types of partners to make sure we could deliver at the right time. And of course, what connected all of these things was the purpose. So making sure that we were able to attract and engage the right talent, both inside and outside the company, at the right time to make sure the business could continue to grow. So we actually decided to work with a couple of different partners, and we decided to really put things on their head, as it were, turn things upside down. So we put some strategic partnerships in place with Erin. Very excited about this. It's a growing business. Great technology, allowing self-referrals, really allowing that employee engagement in referring employees or future prospective employees. They also do a great job of being brand ambassadors and recruiters. They encourage your employees to really position themselves in this way. We also worked with SHL. So we gathered data, we did a lot of work in-house, and SHL, with their expertise, were able to integrate with our technology and make sure that we had consistency in how we were assessing and integrating into our recruitment processes all of those pieces that would help us to select the right candidates. And Cielo was our preferred partner for the RPO. So we brought on board an RPO, which was a very dramatic change for our business. So it took some time to work through what this would mean. And actually, it's really allowing us to accelerate that growth and move forward with our talent acquisition strategy in 2021. So I'm really excited that we were able to do this with these partners. And of course, this isn't new to anybody. It's a new model in as much as Tess, of course, has branded this with her business, and it forms part of this methodology. But if you think about the synergy for success, so of course, you need to have the right talent acquisition partners, you need the hiring manager to understand their role, and you need the HR business partners to really support from a strategic perspective, the right hiring process, and making sure that we're able to, once we identify those candidates, move them through the process in a good way and integrate them into our business. We also focus very much, as I mentioned, with our strategic partners on technology, because one of the things that can often let us down, and we've heard this a lot through the pandemic, of course, is this focus on digitalization and technology. So all of our referrals, our ATS, our applicant tracking system, and our assessment, they all talk to each other and they come together so that we're able to really use that information. So we designed that so that our users, i.e. our recruiters, our in-house talent, COE, are able to make decisions using the data and enabling those processes to work seamlessly from end to end. Then, of course, we needed to restart. So we did the reimagining, we really looked at the design, and then, of course, we needed to restart. Now, I'm not going to share the video with you today because we're not sure that it's necessarily going to work on this platform. But of course, we did a lot of work with our in-house stakeholders to make sure that we were able to really understand what was going to move the needle. And it moves us here to this value impact. Understanding that we not only needed to bring economic efficiency, so making sure that we were able to look at the cost of hire, for example, managing the risks, so making sure that we had a very much a compliant but also proactive hiring model. We needed to improve quality. So of course, no one likes to spend thousands on recruitment and then find that people leaving in their first year or in their probationary period. So we really made sure to take the time with our partners to look at the quality of the hiring process, the quality of the selection, and obviously the quality of the hire at the end. And of course, it needed to create a competitive advantage for us. So we wanted to make sure it was agile enough that with our partners, we could increase, we could accelerate or decelerate according to what the business needed, and that we could take some insights, that we could use all of that data to really support us through this model. So, I mean, I really appreciated working with Tess. In fact, I didn't have necessarily the capability or capacity in my in-house team to make sure that I was able to do that. So creating a partnership with someone like Talent Reimagine, Tess and her team, really helped us to come together. And we accelerated by augmenting what we already had. We brought in new and exciting different ways of working. We transformed at the same time as flying the plane. So we really did continue business as usual and transform at the same time. And we engaged the right partners to help us unlock the potential of the existing team, but also those partners. So unlocking the potential of our company. This is an exciting slide here. You'll see, and you may not see it very clearly, but we actually invited a llama to one of our meetings. We wanted to do something different. We wanted to do something that would get people excited about this project. And so in one of our meetings where we were coming together to finalize the project, we were able to work with a pet sanctuary, and they actually brought a llama into our meeting. So just to give you an example of one of the fun and exciting things we did to bring some life to this project. So that moves us into the Q&A. I'm very happy to take questions. I hope that Tess will be able to join us again. And let's see.
And I'll be able to join you again too. So yeah, and apologies for the, I mean, I don't know if I can control everything in the world, so I don't know why I feel compelled to apologize, but I know it's, you know, stressful when technology doesn't work, but we're trying to do things from around the world. Tess is in Switzerland, you're in the UK, I'm here in California, so you know we're making it work. My question for you is, number one, congratulations on what you achieved, and certainly empathize with the plane's moving, and you just got to get things done, and you got to reinvent certain ways of doing things. And there's obviously been huge disruptions in talent marketplaces as well as in organizations internally. So matching that over time is a difficult challenge. So my question for you is, who, you obviously in your leadership role as CHRO, are making the call on this, but what was the impetus beyond what you've shared already from your internal customers to say, hey, we need to do things, better. We need to do this faster, more efficiently, more effectively. Can you give me and the viewers, the listeners, some idea of what was the spark among your internal customers to say, oh gosh, this is something that we need to improve on, and thus, let's go. And you saw that and went in turn, created an initiative to make it happen?
Yeah, thank you. Really good question. I guess there are a number of things that I would answer. One of those would be, we looked at some of our talent processes, so some of our associated talent processes. So for example, succession planning, we looked at the number of executives that we were hiring that were diverse, for example, whether it's racially diverse, ethnic, whether it's female, whatever it might be, age. We also know that in life sciences, it's a relatively incestuous industry. So if you exclusively use third-party recruiters, so for example, executive recruiters, agencies, etc., if you use those people exclusively, what you tend to find is that you hire the same kinds of people because the industry is very strong in that way. The network is very strong. So in essence, the impetus did come from my internal customers, of course, because they wanted to be able to recruit better talent quicker to the right roles. But they also wanted to see different talent. They wanted to understand how we could improve the diversity of our bench, how we could improve the numbers of females coming into leadership positions, for example. So there were a number of things that were happening in the background that really drove some of that decision making.
And this is a question for Tess if she is able to come back on, but I had the great pleasure of working with John Boudreau here in the U.S. at the Center for Effective Organizations, almost 20 years ago. And he was talking about, at that time, the need for mental models to frame how we're thinking about everything from talent acquisition to talent development to performance, because we all have our different ideas on how this works. And until we can align around something, and then that's when things get done. So can you just, Sian, given that you were the one who engaged Tess, okay, that makes sense. I can align not only myself, but others around this. Can you talk about what resonated with that particular model, with Tessa's model with you?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not particularly risk averse. It's one of the reasons that I'm in life sciences, I guess. I like to make quick decisions. I like to make things happen quickly. So I absolutely knew that Tess would be able to partner to make it happen at the speed that I needed it to happen. So that was definitely a factor. I think the other piece is, like I mentioned, traditional ways of hiring or traditional processes, you sometimes find that you're hiring the same type of person. And what I wanted to do was turn that on its head. And so choosing recruiting partners like the referral platform Erin, for example, it's really allowed us to unlock our employees as being brand ambassadors, as really getting them involved in the hiring process. We've already seen a significant increase in the number of referrals for roles. And many of us will know in recruitment, and we've been in this for years, I'm sure, great people know other great people. So often when they're referring someone, who they believe can be successful at our company, and they've already made a few of those judgments, haven't they? So right. I think what I wanted to do with Tess was really, I knew that she understood that. I knew that she could work at the pace that I needed. And we worked very closely to make sure we could do that. And one of the things that was also important was that success. How did we know that we were successful? We're still obviously in the process, and you learn and you fail and you learn and you fail. But that success piece, especially for a business that's moving as quickly as ours, is really, really important. And I knew Tess would be able to support to actually define those success measures with us as well.
Well, Tess, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that the model itself, what was important to me was that we could all together reimagine a different future. So reimagine a place in the future and make sure that we can align all the business objectives and goals around that and ensure that whatever we were building today was going to scale for the future. Because I think in my own experience with talent acquisition, we tend to optimize or outsource or create new processes, but not necessarily think about how is that going to all work together as the business starts to expand and evolve. So for me, the model was about putting structure around that, both for Sian, for the team, for her executives and stakeholders, but also to provide the right governance as we were accelerating through that change. So everyone knew where they were at the exact point in time. So there was a lot of governance reporting that sat within that model to make sure that there was full transparency about how we were getting to that endpoint. Yeah, and I think it's really going to create the acceleration.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I and everybody else listening got that. So, Sian, I'm going to go back to you with that framing. We in the people analytics and future of work community obviously, have a focus or at least an affinity for the use of data and analytics. So can you speak to what measures or metrics of success that are guiding you and your work with Tess?
Yeah, great question. So, of course, we've got financial measures. I mean, that's an obvious one. We wanted to decrease, quite frankly, the agency spend and increase the number of hires that we had through both referrals and direct hiring. So that was very clear to us. But more than that, as I mentioned before, some of it was around the quality of hire. So it was around making sure that when we're hiring people through these new processes with the assessment tools, that they're actually going to stay with us. That they're going to be part of our journey for a number of years. So at the moment, we're starting to integrate into some of our other measures, as I mentioned before, like succession planning, top talent, when we're doing those talent assessments and things like this. We also have some measures in place to look at the satisfaction of candidates as they go through that process, but also the satisfaction of the hiring manager. How does the hiring manager feel about this process? Is it too long-winded? Do they feel they're getting the best candidates? Do they feel that the process is, staged in the right way? So we've got a number of different measures to really assess how it's working for the company, but also how it's working for the individuals going through the process.
Got it. And I want, Tess, you there? Because this would be a perfect segue into her. Tess, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you.
All right, let's give it a go. So you heard my question and Sian's response, hopefully, around the metrics that are generated through the application of this model. So can you speak to that real quick? What data and metrics are you coaching your clients on using that are different than the ones that you've used in the past?
So you probably, and I'm sorry I missed the slides as I was cycling through, but there's those 4 areas that we aim to when we put the business case together to be thinking about from a value impact perspective. So economic efficiency, managing risk, improving quality, and creating competitive advantage. I think we held on to those from the beginning in terms of how could we define those for the future, what would it look like? The reality is right now that the loudest talking point, I would say, is the cost efficiency. I think in terms of, what's the investment and what kind of return is this going to bring to the organisation, that still speaks a lot. But the reality was all of the different work streams that we designed, deployed, the interconnectivity between those work streams, there's going to be a huge impact from my perspective, easy to say, but I think Sian would agree with me, around the quality of hire as well, because there was work done that really is about the branding. It's about how do you assess people for what they can do, not necessarily what they have done. How do you make it easy for people to refer talent and themselves into open positions? There was a lot that was happening at the same time. And we did it consciously to do a just-in-time launch around this all. I mean, one day people sort of woke up and things were different. And we're going to keep close to it in terms of tracking the success over time. So Sian will be hearing from me on a regular basis.
Yeah, Sian, you have something to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, she's absolutely right. I mean, sometimes to our business leaders, of course, the financial metrics seem to be the be all and end all, but it's because in the past it's been so difficult for us to quantify that quality of hire. But Tess, it's right. We've started to shift from assessing candidates against what's on their CV or their experience to really thinking more about things like learning agility, or, you know, how are they going to adapt to the future? So we're really shifting that thinking, which is why I mentioned, you know, bringing different types of people into our industry. It's a really meaningful way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So focusing on quality of hire for who ultimately is responsible for quality of hire in your view? Start with you, Sian, because you know, there's an argument to be said it's the organization and the systems and processes. It's an argument to be said for the recruiters and, you know, those who are doing the selection, including the hiring manager. Sometimes it's even, you know, once they get in, are they being resourced properly? Is the onboarding process, you know, have integrity? And, you know, ultimately is the delta between what they've been sold and what they're actually, you know, experiencing, you know, pretty tight, pretty low. So, you know, quality of hire to you, Sian.
So that's a really, for me as an HR professional, I would say it's actually a lot down to the hiring manager and the line manager, right? Mm-hmm. So hopefully they're usually the same person, but sometimes it does differ. But I would say it's down to the line manager for the reasons that you actually said. Mm-hmm. So the hiring manager should be involved throughout the recruitment process. They should be helping to refine or define the criteria for who the right candidates are, what the experience level we need, what the skills and the competencies that we need. But also they are heavily involved in the integration piece. They are heavily involved in onboarding and quality of hire. You know, you can't measure that after kind of, you know, a 3-month probationary period. You know, you've really got to look, as I mentioned before, at success measures around succession planning, bench strength, where they are on the talent grid. And that takes time. And really, who's managing that? The hiring manager is managing that. The line manager is managing that. So for me, it is quite clear that it is the line manager who really owns that process. We, as HR professionals and recruiters, we hold their hands, you know, we guide them through the process, we provide the right tools, support them with technology or assessment, etc. But ultimately, you know, the decision making sits with the hiring manager. So that's the person who's guiding that candidate once they're on board to be successful.
Yeah, no, I have a bias. I agree. You know, and but we also, you know, obviously in HR and the nature of your work, you know, have a responsibility and opportunity to do our best to create the systems and processes to provide, you know, qualified candidates, which is obviously, you know, what we're talking about here today. And so, Tess, I'm going to try and, you know, test your microphone. You know, again, yeah, anything to add on, you know, the quality of hire and, you know, who's ultimately responsible? And I guess an adjacent question, you know, anything you want to add on the role of HR in creating processes and systems to elevate the quality of candidates in the first place?
Yeah, so I'm with you. I think the buck stops with the hiring manager in terms of making decisions of the hire and then owning the quality of that. And also they're there to manage those individuals and to get the best from them. So there's a kind of a journey from that decision-making onboarding point as well. But I do come back to that triangle, that synergy between the hiring manager. I think HR is there to be the internal expert, to coach, develop, to take also accountability around the recruiting process. And the recruiters are there to bring the best of the outside into the organisation and to manage internal candidates effectively. So I think really the buck stops with the manager, but there's an accountability that has to be shared across those three roles as well. And as it relates to HR and roles and process, I think for me, I've seen, and maybe it got touched on through the slides, that I've seen process where HR sort of taken out of the recruiting process and told to do more strategic work or to business partner, but leave recruitment to talent acquisition. I actually think that HR business partners need to be elevated in the process and need to be decision makers, but they need to be accountable at the beginning and the end, because there's such a interlink with then the onboarding of that hire, the relationship with the manager, that it's so important they take that accountability through that process as well.
Tess, as you're talking, there's been a few times in my life where I wanted to hear somebody clearly more, and so I for one understood everything you said. I also know that we're going to have to do a follow up, you and me, and so we can get a clear narrative on all these topics, because I really, I'm learning about what you're doing right now for the first time, and it's impressive and it's needed. The idea that we're going to press reset on legacy processes and legacy ways of thinking is not appropriate. It's not appropriate now, and certainly it's not going to be appropriate as we continue to evolve over time. So again, kudos to you. As we start to wrap here, I'll go back to you, Sian. You likely, like most CHROs, interact with other CHROs. So my question to you is, how does this? Are you seeing others either not taking fast enough action, or they're doing things differently? Is this approach aligned with what you see happening elsewhere? And the related question is, if you were advising a talent partner, whether it be a people analytics leader or someone who's leading talent acquisition, how would you like to be approached to nudge a process, improve a process in a certain way?
So the first part of the question, so I've actually just spent the last 2 days in an HR conference with peers. So what I'm hearing from people is there is a feeling that we need to change. There is a feeling that traditional models, traditional ways of hiring, it needs to change. But I will be honest, many companies are still not moving quick enough. They're not moving fast enough to capture what's happening in our world, quite frankly. And it is a global world now. You can't operate just in a country anymore. We live globally. So many companies are not adapting, in my opinion, of course. The second part of the question is, especially in our industry, which is life sciences, but particularly in other industries where you are looking to attract talent from across different generations and different parts of society, I believe that we need to make bold moves. We need to adapt digital solutions. We need to be thinking differently. I, for one, as I said before, I'm not very risk averse. I like bold ideas. I like new ideas. I know that there are many people in the pharmaceutical or life sciences industry who think like me, but I also know there are some who don't. So on that perspective, it's really showing them the numbers. So they would need to understand what it would mean for their business. How would I sell this to my business leaders? I'm very fortunate. I have a CEO who constantly tells me, let's make bold decisions, Sian, let's do things differently. So I'm very, very lucky. I do appreciate that not everybody has a CEO like that. But I would say most people in my position would need to see the numbers. They'd need some evidence or something. And I know, again, not speaking for Tess, because she'll speak for herself clearly, but working through some of those case studies and seeing evidence of how this has worked, how it can transform workplaces or processes is going to be really, really important.
Well, thank you for that. And given the obviously massive disruption that we're all dealing with, and given even if that didn't happen, the pace of change is accelerating, and I don't know if there's a limit to the pace of change, but it's mind-numbing. It's mind-numbing for young people. It's mind-numbing for us who have been around the block a few times. So the need to change is obviously there. It just then begs the question: is there the willingness? Yeah. And if there's a willingness, then what do you change? How do you change? And that's what I hear Tess brought to the fore for you. So great. So as we wrap here, Tess, some final thoughts, and how can people learn more about you and what you do?
Just in terms of talking about the future of work, one of the vision I had for Talent Reimagine was really to, in the future, to challenge some of the ways that we think about the employment model and workforce and workspace and workforce optimization. And I thought that was something in the future when I started Talent Reimagine. But then COVID, with all its obstacles and curveballs, came along and has shone a big light on that now. And be no surprise to say we're developing a methodology technology and starting to work with clients on how do we accelerate through this change in terms of thinking about the workforce and workspace, the interconnectivity between the two, and how do we optimize and leverage this opportunity. So it's an exciting time for Talent Reimagined, and if people want to reach out, you can reach me on LinkedIn. We have a company page there as well. I'd love to hear from everyone.
All right, Tess, thank you for that. Sian, closing comments.
Yeah, I mean, I have really appreciated the opportunity to be here today, so thank you. The partnership that I have with Tess, because she has worked in my industry, because she has that experience, worked incredibly well. Like I say, I was ready for a bold move. So if there's anyone listening today who is thinking that actually sounds like something my business needs, then I would say, you know, find me on LinkedIn, find Tess on LinkedIn. We'll tell you warts and all, you know, what we found through our journey, how it worked. The bits that we finessed, we will share everything with you. So just reach out.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks to you. But hey, Tess, you mind unmute, put the video back on real quick? I just want to make sure that we can. There you are. Well, we saw that the brief snapshot. So anyway, I just want to. Yeah, I just want to, thank you both for contributing and your accomplishments, and dealing with the technology stuff. But I certainly celebrate what you're doing, and we'll certainly, look to you to learn more how this progresses over time. So thanks again, really appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Take care.